Coffee has so many benefits, from boosting your heart and brain health to boosting your mental and physical performance to even extending your life expectancy. However, there is a dark side to coffee, but the good news is that we can massively reduce these if we know how. So in this video, I'm going to show you what exactly these harmful effects of coffee are, but most importantly, 8 ways in which you can significantly reduce these harmful effects to make it into a health drink, to make it into something that's actually going to do your body some good, but also to massively improve the taste of the coffee. And make sure you stick to the end to see what coffee beans I use and exactly how I make it and why I make it this way, so you can maximize these health benefits too. Let's begin. Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Steven and thank you so much for joining. In this video, we're going to be talking coffee. And if I've got you worried that coffee wasn't as healthy as you thought it was, don't be worried, because if you follow the steps I'm about to go through, then you can make this super healthy and so much more tasty. So what are the harmful effects? Let me go through them first and then I'll go through how we can mitigate these. So the first one is that it can affect your sleep. That's probably no surprise, but that's primarily due to the caffeine. Now, interestingly, there are 2 gene variations in people. That means that some people will break down caffeine quicker than others, which probably explains why some people can have coffee close to bed and not affect them, and some people can have coffee in the afternoon or 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and it does affect their sleep. Number 2, it increases your cortisol. This is a stress hormone, and therefore it's going to put your sympathetic system into an active state. This is the system that you need when your body needs to be at high alert and to be on a high performance mode. If, for example, you're going to run away from a tiger, or you need to do something at a very high level, but normally this is short term. The problem with the sympathetics is that if it's turned on for long periods, then it becomes chronic. So if you suffer with stress, adding a cup of coffee can contribute and make this worse than it may need to be, particularly if you're having a lot of it. Number 3 is it can induce anxiousness and jitteriness. And again, that's because of the sympathetics. So again, if you're someone that does get anxious, you may need to limit how much coffee that you have. But you may have even noticed this yourself. If you have too many coffees in a day, sometimes you can get a bit shaky or a little bit jittery. So do be careful about how much coffee you're having, and you can easily reduce this. Number 4, it can contribute to dehydration. And this is because coffee will inhibit ADH. This is a hormone, the antidiuretic hormone, and its main role is to retain water in your body so you don't get dehydrated. Coffee will inhibit this, which means you expel more water than you should out of your body, which is why you can end up needing to pee more after having more coffee. The problem is that if you're doing this quite a lot, it starts to dehydrate you. Now, the good news is that if you get used to a certain level of coffee every day, then it tends to then equal out. Number 5, coffee can contain levels of acrylamide. This is a chemical that has been linked to harmful health effects like cancer. It's present mainly because of the roasting. So the more that the coffee beans are roasted, the more acrylamide. It's also found in stuff like burnt toast. So it's the burning aspect, it's the roasting aspect that increases this chemical. Now, number 6, I found particularly interesting because coffee contains chemicals that are called diterpenes. These are found naturally in plants, and in coffee specifically, it's got 2, cafestol and calwal. Basically, these chemicals have been shown in research to significantly increase the levels of your cholesterol, and particularly your LDL, so your bad cholesterol, and therefore it can contribute to cardiovascular disease. One study showed that those drinking 5 cups of coffee each day made in a cafetiere had around 6 to 8% increase in their cholesterol just in 4 weeks of drinking it. Now, interestingly, you do have to be drinking a fair amount of the coffee, so 5 cups is quite a lot in a day. to see these increases. Studies generally haven't seen a significant increase when you're having less than 2 cups of coffee per day. Now, just before I go through how you can mitigate these, how you can improve the taste and the health of coffee, if you're not yet subscribed to this channel, then please can I invite you to do so. If you want to see more content like this one and to help me to create better and more of this type of content. So how can we make coffee healthier and tastier? Well, the first thing we can do is just be aware of when you're having the coffee in the day. My recommendation is not to have coffee after midday. And the reason is because coffee has a half-life of anywhere between 6 and 8 hours. Now, as I mentioned before, this can vary with person to person. However, as a general rule, I'll suggest about midday. If you're having it too close to bed, even if you can sleep after having the coffee, generally the quality of the sleep is poor. There really hasn't been any studies showing how you can have coffee before bed and it not affect your sleep. This is in the vast majority of people. There may be some outliers out there. If you are one of them, then let yourself be known in the comments below. But generally midday is a good time if you want to make sure it doesn't affect your sleep, and then you shouldn't really have too much of an issue. My second tip is to make sure you drink coffee in moderation. So as I spoke about with the diterpenes, this was primarily found in those that were drinking around 5 cups a day, and it certainly wasn't that significant under 2. I limit my cups of coffee to 2 a day. I generally only have 1. Occasionally I'll have 2. I wouldn't go much more than 3 cups a day if you want to make this more of a health drink rather than something where you're getting too much caffeine, and that can lead to things that I spoke about earlier, like poor sleep and stress and anxiousness and jitteriness. Number 3, to avoid dehydration. Again, drinking coffee in moderation is going to help this, but also make sure you're not only having coffee, that you are having other liquids, primarily water. You need to make sure you are hydrating yourself throughout the day, and that you're not just using coffee or alcohol as a way to hydrating yourself, because they tend to have almost a negative impact on hydration. Number 4 is to have a lighter roast, certainly not a dark roast. Now, personally, I find the taste is much better like this, but also the less it is roasted, the less levels of acrylamide, but also the more polyphenols you're going to have. These are the antioxidants that can reduce aging, that can reduce cell damage and contribute to health. So look for the beans that are more light to medium roast and avoid the ones that are dark or really dark roast. And number 5 is not to add anything to it that is going to make it suddenly an unhealthy drink, particularly things like sugar and sweeteners and cream and all the other things that go with it. Coffee is a massive industry now, and we've got used to having things like frappuccinos and lattes and that sort of stuff. Now, if you like that type of thing, then absolutely go ahead and have it, but don't think that you're having a health drink, because adding those things are pretty much going to outweigh any health benefits that you were getting from the coffee itself. Number 6, the type of coffee that you have really matters. What you want to avoid is the processed coffee, so instant. The best type of coffee is going to be your fresh coffee, particularly the fresher the beans, and if you can grind them yourself, you're not only going to get it healthier, but you're also going to get it tasting better. A study where they looked at the life expectancy of those drinking coffee compared to not drinking coffee, they found that all types of coffee increased longevity. However, those that had the fresh ground coffee had a 27% increase in longevity compared to instant coffee that only had 11%. So it definitely shows how you get much more health benefits. You're also going to get more of the polyphenols, more nutrition generally. So stick to the fresh ground coffee. Now, number 7, I talked about the diterpenes, the cafestol. You can massively reduce this by filtering your coffee as opposed to having the cafetiere coffee. The study that I mentioned earlier, where they had 5 cups of coffee that was made in a cafetiere that increased the cholesterol by 6 to 8%, they were having that in the cafetiere. They've actually shown that if you filter your coffee through filter paper, you can reduce the cafestol and the cowell by 300 times. So actually you have very minimal amounts after filtering it, because it doesn't really go through the paper filter. So I'm a big fan of the paper filter. I know that some people don't like it because it's not environmentally friendly. However, there are two massive advantages, and this is the first one. It is better for your health. You're going to have less cardiovascular risk, but also I just prefer the taste of it. It has less of a gritty taste, and you don't have the bits that end up on the bottom. So that means that the best type of coffee is going to be the drip coffee or the pour over coffee. And I'm going to explain which one I do and why in just a minute. Now, finally, number 8 is to avoid putting your coffee through plastic. And this is why I prefer the pour over coffee, which you saw me doing at the beginning, because the pour over coffee in the way that I do it goes through a steel filter into a glass jug, as opposed to going through a plastic filter that is pretty much in most of the coffee machines that I can find, even the more expensive ones. There's two main reasons for this. The first one is a health reason. It's because as you're putting hot water through plastic, you're actually going to pick up micro amounts of the plastic into the water, which will then end up in you. When they measured the amount of BPAs in people, they found in pretty much everyone has a level to a degree. The question is just how much you have. So you want to limit this as much as possible, and particularly when the water is hot going through, is going to pick up more of the plastic than if it was cold. But also I found that there is a significant improvement in the taste with coffee that goes through the pour over filter, that goes through the steel filter into the glass jug, compared to the plastic filter that I have in my coffee machine. This is why pretty much always now I'm going to do it with the pour over. So in summary, to improve the health effects of coffee and the taste, you want to make sure that you're looking at the time of day that you're having coffee, so not past midday. You want to make sure you're having it in moderation. I'll recommend no more than 2 or 3 cups in a day. You want to make sure you're also hydrating yourself across the day, so making sure you're having water on its own. Have the coffee black, don't add anything in it, and also have it as fresh as possible. I would suggest the pour over method so that you're not putting it through plastic, and also don't have it in a French press, because otherwise you're going to get more of those terpenes that can then increase your cholesterol. Unless you're only having a small amount of coffee, actually you can have the cafetiere. It's going to be absolutely fine. But if you're having lots of coffee, much better just to have it through the filter. But also if you have an issue with your heart, if you suffer with cardiovascular disease, then you're probably going to be better anyway just having it through the filter. Now you can also maximize this by the type of beans that you use. Now you may have remembered in my previous video that I was introduced to a coffee called Exhale Coffee. And at that time I hadn't yet tried it, but I was really impressed with what they brag about in regards to the health effects of it, how the company are really aware of the health of coffee, and they've tried to maximize their beans and make it as healthy as possible. I've now tasted it. This is the coffee I got here that you saw me pouring at the very beginning, and it has lived up to expectation. It is a really nice coffee, which makes sense because if they looked after the health of it often, and it ends up tasting better. So this coffee is organic. Often the cherries or the coffee can be quite heavily sprayed. So organic is a really big advantage to reduce this. They are generally light on the roasting, so they reduce the acrylamide, they maximize the polyphenols. This one is also fair trade and it's also sustainable. So they really maximize on their health and on the sustainability of the coffee, and it tastes amazing. So I can really recommend them. I'll put a link in the description so you can get some of their coffee. So comment below the best type of coffee that you like, the way that you make it, and any other benefits that you enjoy from coffee. And if you haven't seen my previous video, I highly recommend you see it on the benefits of coffee to see exactly what these benefits are. You'll see that video just pop up on the screen just here, but just before that does, don't forget that if you head into the description below, you can get 10% off a pair of Vivo barefoot shoes, minimalist shoes that I wear every single day. You can get 10% off Athenaise, which is a superfood specifically formulated for men, and 15% off a natural deodorant that doesn't contain the harmful chemicals that traditional deodorants contain. So I'll see you either on this video or on my next one, so don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.